And for the latest on how Cyclone Alfred is tracking, here's the Bureau's Angus Hines. Angus, good evening and appreciate you being up at this late hour. Now, firstly, can you give us an update? How is the cyclone tracking and when is it going to make landfall on the mainland of Queensland?
Yeah, good evening. Thanks for having me here. The Tropical Cyclone Alfred is about 70 kilometres off the coast of the Gold Coast in Queensland. It's only about 50 to 60 kilometres away from the outer islands in the Brisbane area, so North Stradbroke Island and Moreton Island. And it does look like those island regions will be the first places to cop the full force of the tropical cyclone crossing as it is approaching that way. It's only moving quite slowly, but it could still cross those outer islands at around about 2 a.m. local time tomorrow morning, and then it may take several hours to cross Moreton Bay and make it onto mainland Queensland. So that could be perhaps around 6 a.m, something of that order, maybe a couple of hours either way by the time it does work its way onto Queensland. So perhaps compared to what we were looking at, that's just a little bit faster, as we have seen the cyclone pick up just a touch of extra movement through the course of this evening. But as it approaches, we do anticipate a continuation of the very windy conditions that we've already been seeing through the last 2 days, really, across the Gold Coast, down through Coolangatta, Tweed Heads, the Northern Rivers, parts of the mid-north coast as well, and a continuation of rain with some embedded heavy falls there, which is more than likely to lead to significant areas of flooding through both northern New South Wales and southeast Queensland. People in Brisbane certainly have noticed that they've avoided the worst of it so far. It's been quite benign there, but overnight tonight in Brisbane we do anticipate those winds to really ramp up, and then from tonight into Saturday, a whole lot more rain headed towards Brisbane as well.
Angus, if, as you say, and according to the latest tracking, if that Category 2 system crosses over the Moreton Islands, is going at such slow speeds, what could be the impacts of something so powerful going across an island or an island grouping like that at such slow speeds?
Yeah, Category 2 tropical cyclone will have significant impacts wherever it reaches the country, including across those island areas. The impacts will be multiple. So firstly, it will be the wind. Very strong, sustained winds expected to really batter those island areas. That can, of course, bring down trees, power, can cause damage to any property that's around there. We will also see persistent heavy rainfall, which can lead to both flash flooding as well as it can cause rivers to rise really quickly, and they can break their banks as well. And we will also see a continuation of what we've seen over the past week or so, which has been very heavy seas. Dangerous and damaging surf conditions have already caused major erosion for eastern beaches through parts of southeast Queensland and the islands, and we'll see more of the very dangerous ocean conditions, which could continue to cause not just hazards on the water, but erosion and damage to beach and beachfront property.
Yes, and as things stand, we do see this band of gale force winds already hitting some of those eastern towns in both Queensland, southeast Queensland and New South Wales. How strong are they at the moment?
At the moment, we're seeing gusts between 90 and 100 kilometres an hour across the east coast, and that's been quite consistent over the past 24 hours. Places like the Gold Coast and Coolangatta in Queensland have just had strong winds overnight last night, all through the day today, and that's only going to continue through the night tonight. If anything, those winds could even get a touch stronger. And of course, we've seen some pretty significant impacts from those winds, mostly in relation to really significant power outages. And across northern New South Wales, it's similar. Strong winds along the coast around about 90 to 100 kilometres an hour. We've seen the odd stray gust up to 120 kilometres around Byron Bay. That's probably been the windiest spot, but it is quite an exposed location at the same time. Overnight tonight, those winds over 100 kilometres an hour could spread to other areas as well, including around Brisbane, where the winds up till now haven't been nearly that strong.
Yeah, Angus, a lot of Queensland residents who I've spoken to, including families, say they are pretty concerned about the intensity of rain. So how much are we expecting, in the next 24 hours, and how long do you think this band of rain is expected to go for?
Look, the rain will be heavy. There's no two ways about that. We've got a severe weather warning which covers a large area from Gympie in Queensland down to south of Grafton in New South Wales. Throughout that whole area, we could see widespread rainfall totals of 150 to 250 millimetres in 24 hours, which is a lot of rain, but some places will get more than that. In particular, the areas that we're looking at for those higher totals could be the likes of the Gold Coast hinterlands, inland parts of southeast Queensland, the eastward facing slopes of the northern rivers and the northern tablelands in New South Wales. And in those particularly exposed areas, we could be seeing up to 450 or 500 millimetres over a 24-hour period, which is really, really significant rainfall. Anywhere in the country, that is a lot of rain that would lead to significant flooding. And we've got major flood warnings for the rivers, as it's expected that that heavy rain will just overwhelm the river system, and many of those rivers will start to experience flood conditions.
And of course, we have been seeing over the past couple of days this variation in the tracking of Cyclone Alfred from a northwesterly to a southwesterly direction. Is there a reason why this happens, or is it simply how a cyclone behaves?
Look, cyclones are just very difficult weather systems to forecast. They're very fickle in terms of subtle changes in the atmosphere can have quite a significant impact either on the direction a tropical cyclone moves or the speed with which a tropical cyclone moves. And that speed is a really important one because it means that's essentially what determines when the tropical cyclone will arrive, is how quickly it moves towards your area. So we've had a couple of shifts in the atmosphere, particularly to the south of the tropical cyclone, and that's just meant a few subtle nudges in what's going on, and that has of course been changing the forecast track slightly. Now the track at the moment is pretty solidified. There's not too much wiggle room there anymore, but certainly over the last several days we have seen that track adjusting and changing as we've been tracking and monitoring conditions, and that just hammers home the point that with tropical cyclones you've always got to keep a watch out for the most up-to-date information because these things can change.